dominating the decimated Niners Thursday night. But how about this? At 19-5, second-year head coach Matt LaFleur has the highest win percentage among active head coaches, better than McVay, Nagy, Belichick, Tomlin, and Sean Payton. So pretty impressive first two seasons in the league. All right, last year the Packers were 13-3. They went to the NFC Championship game. Now they're 6-2. At this point, from what you've seen so far in the season, D. Hall, you considering them legit Super Bowl contenders?
Guys, I'm laughing because I see that Matt LaFleur name at the top of the list, and I go back to a story where he was, I think, a quality control guy in Washington, and you know, I almost ripped his head off, and I apologized to him shortly after. But to see him on that list now, wow, that's amazing. And, you know, he is a good football coach, and the Green Bay Packers are a really, really good football team. But because I know what their weakness is, it's so hard for me to sit here and say, yes, they are as great as we think they are, or as great as their record says they are, because I just don't believe it. You know, their kryptonite is a team that can run the football, a physical type of team. We saw the 49ers be that team last year, and even though Green Bay won a whole lot of football games, when it was time to actually stop the run game, they could not. They got overpowered, and so, yes, the 49ers are nowhere near the team they were last year, but to see what Minnesota was able to do, and Dalvin Cook's a great player, and we got something special for Dalvin Cook later in the show, but team after team are able to overpower this, you know, this Green Bay front. And so, yes, when Aaron Rodgers is hitting and this offense is scoring points and that defense can just rush the passer, they are a dominating defense. But when you have an offense that can pound the ball at them, they show me a lot of question marks. So I can't buy them, guys. I'm sorry.
I'm very, very curious to know what Matt LaFleur did to you that you almost ripped his head off. But listen, I won't go there. I'll keep it pushing. So you talked about the Packers' run defense. That has obviously been the issue for them, and that's not anything new. That was the issue for them last year. Dalvin Cook ran all over them last week, and I feel like losing to a team that was previously a one-win team, that's a little bit of a red flag for me. But looking at the remaining schedule, it looks like Tennessee is really the only team that has a legit run game that they're going to have to deal with here. In fact, of their remaining 8 opponents, 4 have bottom 5 rushing yards per game. So you got Chicago twice, you got Jacksonville, Detroit, Indianapolis. I mean, maybe the Panthers with CMC back in the mix will be a little different, but I think that it's something that they can end the season on a high note, but it's like, where are they going to go from there because of that run defense?
Like, what's all the hate on the Packers for, D. Hall? Come on, man. You've been on their back for the last couple of years. They can only play with the teams are on the schedule, right? And those teams that are scheduled, they won 13 games last year, and they're winning again this year. Yes, I do agree with you that their run defense is suspect. Kenny Clark, bro, don't ever put that on film ever again. You're too good of a player. I hope you're watching the show right now. Very concerned about your performance last week against the Minnesota Vikings. But I will say this, and D. Hall, you and I talked about this on the call yesterday. Sometimes when you have a quarterback as great as Aaron Rodgers, the defense tends to lax sometimes because you know you have the firepower, you have the arm strength, you have all the things on the offensive side of the football to be able to come back in games. And I think sometimes these great quarterbacks, they don't always have lights out types of a defense, or games have to go a certain way for the defense to look well. For instance, the Green Bay Packers, they have to ball out offensively, put up points so that the defense can just be pass rushers, right? That's how they're built. And I think sometimes when they get into games that with teams who just are ignorant about running the football, that is when this defense, this Green Bay Packers defense, gets in trouble. But I just think they fall victim to the fact that they have a great quarterback who has a tremendous arm strength. And guys, just think back through history. How many of the great quarterbacks have lights out defenses? People can talk about my old quarterback and Russell Wilson, but when he won a Super Bowl, we had a top defense and a great running game. We weren't leaning on Russell Wilson. Now that the Seattle Seahawks is leaning on Russell Wilson, the defense is taking a step back. When Peyton Manning was in Indy, same thing. So I just think that we have to look at these teams that have these great quarterbacks and give their defense a little justice. Look, they get the label of not being physical because their quarterback is so great, so magnificent.
And that quarterback, Mike Robb, has always had multiple options that you have to worry about. And that's why this game from Marquez Valdes-Scantling was so important for this team, because now you got to pay attention to him. He will run through the middle of your defense if your guys are not on your keys, which means that maybe you can't devote a ton of attention to Davante Adams. And guess who's coming back? Allen Lazard, who had a big game before he went down with core muscle surgery. He's been practicing already, could be back soon for this team. So to me, I look at that side of the ball and I see a myriad of targets there. And I don't, listen, we're so quick to like take teams out of the Super Bowl contender conversation. This is a team that had 19 guys in the injury report going into a game against a division rival that's got a lot of veterans and a veteran coach. I know it's a one-win team, or it was at the time, but I still look at that and say, hey, that's a tough game for you to win, especially when that team is desperate. So leave this team in the conversation. They're still dangerous, and they're maybe even more dangerous on offense.
It's pretty wild that Aaron Rodgers is playing the way that he is without weapons around him. I mean, obviously Davante Adams, but, you know, the whole conversation about them not bringing in a wide receiver and then guys getting hurt. I mean, he's second in the league in passing touchdowns behind Russell Wilson. He's thrown 11 touchdowns, 0 interceptions in his past 3 games. So he is just playing lights out, basically like his MVP seasons. It's been amazing to watch, to be honest. It's going to be amazing to watch this game.